Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 8 Steps to Successful Transformation. I can't even say the word, Successful Transformation, that's better. My name is Jessica Mc Gregor-Johnson, and I'm really thrilled to welcome you to this webinar this evening with Vicky Ross. And this evening we're going to be looking at how what a transformational summer you can have. As I said, my name's Jessica, but we're also, those of you who have come from people who know me, but we also have some people who know Claire. So I want to welcome you as well as everybody from Vicky's collection of people. And if you've just happened to come across us through some universal, oh, what's that? Welcome to you too. We're welcoming you all today.
Thanks, Jessica. And yes, welcome to everybody tonight. This is going to be a smashing evening, and I'm really thrilled to be doing this webinar together with you, Jessica. Jessica and I are both in very similar worlds. We both work with personal development, and we come from, our own sort of experiences. And this is a really exciting thing to be doing together. So, I'm really absolutely excited about tonight.
Yeah. And I just want to say a couple of things before we get going, is that I've known Vicky for quite a while now, and like her, I very much believe that you transform your life through your mindset and transforming your thoughts and what you think about yourself. And I highly rate Vicky Ross. She's an amazing woman. She does some fantastic work. I've personally had some work with her, and I was one of the people who I would always say, listen to this lady. She has a lot of good stuff to say. So I'm really excited about all the great value that you're going to be giving us tonight, Vicky. So thank you for that. And everybody, all I can say is sit back and enjoy.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks a lot for that. And yes, feelings are mutual. So one of the key things that people always ask me is like, well, who is this for? And is this for me? And, how do I know if I fit into this program and all of that? And really and truly, this program is for anybody who is in any type of transition in their lives. And maybe this transition at this stage hasn't even begun. Maybe it's just mental. Perhaps you're thinking, I want to have something different happen in my life. I'm not happy with my job. I find that I'm living a very mediocre life, and I don't want that anymore. Sometimes people actually, it's not even about not enjoying their jobs. Some people really don't like their jobs at all, but they feel trapped in that. For some people, it is because they feel not good enough in themselves, and they are getting so stressed and scared that people will find out. And if they do find out, then what will happen then? How will they overcome that rejection that might happen? So they want to have that transformation where they can start to like themselves, value themselves, and be able to enjoy life, because at the moment life is very stressful. So whatever the transition that you're going through, whether it is changing jobs, whether it is changing careers, whether it is changing partners, or wanting to move from a place where you don't like yourself to a place where you're feeling good about who you are, and therefore you are able to now enjoy your life, this program fits you. Anybody who wants to step up, anybody who wants to get more, and anybody who wants to understand themselves, this program fits you. So in order to be able to start to understand what it is and where we come from, obviously all our problems start and stem from our lives and our personalities. And what I want you to start to think is that when we are born, we don't have a reference to understand experiences. So in other words, we're born as a blank sheet, and then the environment stimulates us, and things that are being said to us stimulates us, and things that we've been told by our parents and teachers, they impress upon us, and all of that collectively will start to build our values and our belief system, which then run the way that we actually have life. And unfortunately, when this is happening, those crucial, especially those first 7 years, but even the next 7 after that, so when we, by the time we become teenagers, we don't have anything inside of us to say, this is not going to help you. There's nothing inside of us that can screen the comments, screen the beliefs, to be able to then stop us from actually taking that on and believing that about ourselves. So we are quite open, and we just absorb all of that. And when we start to experience that is when we're adults, when we start to make our own decisions in life, and suddenly we make bad decisions, or things go wrong, or we feel uncomfortable, or we don't have the confidence to do the things that we want. So perhaps we have an internal desire to do something, and when we're at that stage, we just don't feel confident enough to do it, and therefore we stop ourselves from living the life that we want. So if we think of ourselves back as children, we are born very happy, we are born innocent. And for most of us, because I appreciate not all children are born in that sort of circumstance where we are nurtured and fed and secure and loved. But most of us in those, especially those crucial years, that's where we're in that space. And interestingly enough, when I speak to adults, that is where they want to go back. They want to go to that space where they feel happy with who they are, where they feel secure, supported, and most of all, where they feel loved. So you've got to understand that any person, any human being's biggest fear is the fear of rejection. Because when we're being rejected, we're not being loved. And that is the biggest thing, that is our biggest fear inside. So although in some sort of environments, it's a little bit woo-woo to go and talk about love and all of that kind of thing, but love translates itself to a lot of different types of emotions and different types of actions. So for instance, you'll find that in a job environment, in a work environment, having respect for your colleagues, it's a form of love. Working with integrity is a form of love. Validating somebody's input and valuing their sort of contribution is a form of love. So the minute we don't get sort of respect for conversations, or if the value of our work is not being appreciated, if what we're doing is not being noted, if people are treating us short and sweet and to the point as if we don't really matter, if we're just another number there, we start to feel more and more rejected, and we start to feel more and more unhappy with the situation. And therefore, what we're trying to get back is going back to that state, because being in that state of unhappiness, that state of imbalance, makes us feel uncomfortable. Jessica, what are your thoughts around, just that general form?
I think it's very true, and I come across it many, many times with people, that the past and the beliefs that we've created in the past have definitely hold us back. I know one that I had from very early age, that it was a fluke that if I was ever successful. And I literally went through life believing this, and it wasn't until I was in my mid-30s and I went, hold on, this doesn't sound right. And then looked at it, did I discover that actually it was a belief that came from a chance comment that my father had made when I was 9. He didn't mean to say that you won't be successful. I made it mean something completely different. And I think this is the key, that often these beliefs that we have come from a situation which is actually quite innocent. And yet can foster a belief that goes on for years.
Massively. And this is, again, what I was saying is that as children, we don't have the filters to be able to go, well, hold on, that is not a good comment, and therefore that's not going to serve me when I grow up. And therefore we take it on. And also the other thing that happens, and this is not to blame parents, but to understand that all parents do the best that they can with the information and the knowledge that they have at that time. But sometimes parents, either through their own behaviors or by little flippant comments that they make, without then explaining to children what's going on, children then take logic upon themselves and deduce what it means, and therefore then believe a certain thing. So for instance, if a father can't come to watch you on sports day, like I remember my dad, he was working night and day when we first got to South Africa, and he couldn't get, he would miss a lot of my school performances. And at that time, I always felt that what I did wasn't important enough. So I wasn't important enough for him. And that made me grow up thinking, well, what's the point of bothering? Nobody cares. And that wasn't the truth. The truth was he was working. But as a child, nobody explained that to me. And therefore, I've made my own conclusions and grew up from that. And I had to become an adult and really sit back and take that in and ask myself, is that true? But by that stage, a lot of stuff had changed. So, when we're looking at ourselves as adults, it is about, what have we taken on through the environment, through, like you've said, what children have said, what parents have said, things we've experienced. There's like a myriad of things, but all those experiences, especially in the early years when we don't have references, build our beliefs and our values, which is where we build our opinions of life and the meaning of life that we have. Because the life that we've got, it means whatever it means, because that's the meaning we've given it.
Exactly. And we keep on doing it all the way through our life. I remember a very good friend of mine used to say to me, when I was making up a really good meaning about something, she'd say, well, that's the story. What's the reality?
Yeah.
It was a really good question.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting thing because a lot of people say, they want to find the meaning of life. They're searching for that meaning of life. And here, for any of you listening, if you are looking for what's the meaning of life, I'll give it to you now. Life has no meaning until you give it one. So whatever you decide your life means, that's what it will be. It's always down to us. It's always our thinking that creates the meaning of the life that we have. And that thinking is based on our values and beliefs that comes from the experiences we've had.
Absolutely.
So if you want your life to be something else, then it's that thought that we have to change. And this is what this program looks at. And it's a very holistic program because, we are not just body, we're not just mind, and we're not just spirit. We're body, mind, and spirit. And therefore, this program actually addresses all areas. It will encourage one to really look and question all parts of your life to see that it's aligned, to see that you're doing what you want to do, to be able to see what it is. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself and my background and how it is that I've got to do what I do. So that's me. That's what I look like. My name is Vicky Ross. But if you look on the bottom, I didn't know this, by the way. So somebody told me yesterday that what comes up at the bottom is Vicky Macropolis. And they said, who the hell is that? And it's just me being a little bit funny when I was creating my account, because Biku is the way that I would write Vicky in Greek. So it's actually Vicky Macropolis, and Macropolis was my maiden name. So it's a little bit of a hidden sort of, that's who I am. So in case you're wondering who that is, and if you get an email from Biku Macropolis, that's me. It's my maiden name. So a lot of people think I'm South African because of the way I sound, and I'm not at all South African, as you can probably tell now. I'm half Greek, I'm half Dutch, but I've grown up Greek, and I've lived in Athens. I went to school there, I learned my first 5 years of school was in Greece. And I got to South Africa and I learned to speak English there. And this is why I sound like them. Now, when I was 14, my parents got divorced, which I know it's not a special case. But for me, at that moment in my life, it made absolutely no sense. I just didn't get it. And it threw my world upside down. And the years that followed were quite turmoiled. And so, like most people, what I went ahead to do is search for inner meaning. And from a very, very young age, I started to look at sociology, psychology, spirituality. I was trying to make sense out of the nonsense of what was going on in my life. The bad sort of or unresourceful beliefs and values that I had about myself, about my life, and the things that I could achieve, my self-worth and what I was able to accomplish started to play their toll when I was in my early adults, like it will for most people. Because when you start to make decisions in your life, when you're paying your own rent and cooking your own food and washing your own clothes, that is when all these things that are going wrong start to go wrong. While somebody else is still guiding you and catching you and all that, you've still got a chance to get it right. But when it's all up down to you, this is where it starts to manifest itself. And that's what happened with me. And some of the things that I went through in my early 20s made me really step back and recognize that I didn't know who I was, and I didn't think I was in a position to get involved with somebody, to get married to somebody, until I really knew and understood myself. So I've been in personal development for over 27 years. And in part of that pathway, especially after we left South Africa, we came to the UK, I started a family. And when I wanted to go back into the working world, I decided to go and study NLP with Dr. Richard Bandler because it was available. And when I was there, obviously, Richard Bandler works with Paul McKenna. And Paul McKenna came and said to me on my master prac, are you a coach? And I went, yeah. He says, I've been watching you and you're really good. Now, the joke behind this for me is that at that stage, I didn't really know who Paul McKenna was. So I didn't know he was a big celebrity person in the UK. I didn't know his status. I just saw him as my trainer. I had chosen his particular school because the sales was good. And Richard Bandler wasn't, as close to him. So I thought, well, that's as close as I can get to the source. So therefore I'll go there. And so I didn't really know who he was. So I didn't get the compliment as much as what people said to me. Wow, that's really good. But what it actually offered me year in, year out, master prac after master prac, practitioner after practitioner, to work with Richard Bandler, Paul McKenna, Michael Neal, and watch these guys, these masters, day in, day out, and really, really understand the concepts behind human behavior and how to develop people, how to truly, truly develop people. I was also given often by Paul corporate not students, corporate sort of CEOs to look after. And a lot of them would say, wow, this stuff is really, really great. Can you use this in business? And I started to recognize that people didn't have the thinking on how do I transfer the information. And therefore, I started to specialize into business. So when I do any business NLP, I do a business practitioner, and I do a lot of business training as a result. But also as a result of working there with them, I've written my own book that's available on Amazon that is called I Understand Me. And it's basically exactly what it says on the tin. It's how to change your thoughts and beliefs to be happy. I've written it with no jargon, so you don't need any background to anything. Just enjoy the book. Also, as a result of my training, I've trained over 5,000 people in 8 different countries. So I've been able to travel predominantly in the UK, obviously. So I've trained all over the UK, but I've also gone to 8 different countries. I'm an instructor of hypnotherapy. I'm a coach. I do TFT. So I know a hell of a lot about what goes on in a human psyche. And therefore, when I was looking at people and the things that they were coming to me for help, I recognized that if people truly wanted a fulfilling transition and one that creates complete transformation, there were certain things that had to be addressed. And this is how I came up with this program that we're going to talk about today. So let's get started, and let's start to talk about this transformation. Now, as Jessica and I've already mentioned, the first step to any kind of transformation is you've got to recognize who you are. So when you're looking to create transformations, you've got to discover what is the story that you have about your life. Jessica, how many times have you heard people give you that story, that excuse about why it is that things are the way they are?
Oh, countless times. And the thing is those stories have been built up over years in people's minds. And so to them, they're not changeable. They're like, well, this is just fact.
Yeah, it's happened.
What's fascinating is that then when you work with people, they realize that actually it can change. I think one of the most, I had somebody say to me once after we'd done some work, she said, I never believed that I never knew that I didn't have to believe my thoughts.
Yes.
And she said, that was just mind-blowing to me that I actually don't have to believe my thoughts. And I went, yep, you can choose. And I think it's that kind of information that people just don't know.
And the thing is, most people, when you look at the way that they discover their story, they're not aware that what drives them, what drives their decisions, what drives their everything that they're doing in life is that story that they have. It's like, well, this is my story, and they want to hold on to it. I remember a similar thing. I said to a woman, when you hear those vile voices in your head, or that story that tells you why you can't do it, just tell it to shut up. And she looked at me and she goes, can I do that? And I said, well, it's your head. It's your thought. You can do whatever you like. She says, can I swear at it? Because I would like to say something a little bit more stronger. I said, you can do whatever you like as long as you don't say it out loud. So, we can't sort of claim Tourette's here. So, just do whatever it has, because it's just a thought, a story. And that story starts when we are babies and when we are innocent and when we're gathering. It moves into that stage when we are teenagers. And teenagers go through a lot of turmoil. They've got hormones raging through their bodies. Their frontal lobe is not completely developed. I mean, that takes about till the age of 25. And that frontal lobe is responsible for all rational thinking, all creativity and all of that kind of stuff. So when you have a 14, 15-year-old, they're like 10 years out of being able to rationally think. But their bodies are screaming with kind of all sorts of hormones. And then we question why teenagers can make such stupid decisions.
Well, they're into reaction rather than responding, aren't they? They're triggered by something that's said or something that happens, and they're triggered into reacting in a certain way.
And
there's no thought part of it either. Even
well,
it's just an automatic reaction.
it's so difficult for them. And you know, a parent has to work really, really hard in coaching a child to step back and start to actually use rational thinking, because they're going against all the physical elements that are going on in their bodies. And then, of course, we've got the same thing going on when that, you know, when somebody goes into young adulthood and they start to mess up, that story gets confirmed. Suddenly, you are right. You see, I knew it. I am useless or worthless or whatever.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? You have that small fledgling belief that you took on at a younger age.
Yeah.
And then you constantly look for the confirmation of that belief as you go through.
Yeah.
It's an unconscious process, but it happens nonetheless.
It's because that unconscious mind has an absolute need to be congruent inside. So therefore, it will always look on the outside. And this is where, you know, you always hear that saying that says, you can't change the world. But when you change yourself, the world will change. And that's what it is about, is that when you change how you feel on the inside, your perception on the outside will look for different things to match and be congruent with. Now,
it's that lovely phrase of, my, how you've changed now that I've changed.
Yes, I love it. Now, the other thing that happens at this point in time is that people start to find out how not enough they are, how I'm not good enough, I'm not educated enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this, you know, there's some not enoughness going on. So they kind of feel that they have to step out of this world and wear a mask and pretend to be somebody else. So I will get, typically at around about the age of 40, I'll get clients that are sort of on the brink of breakdown because they are so scared that they're going to be found out, that they're pretending to be good enough in their jobs or good enough in their relationships. And they're so scared that if people find out that they're actually not valuable enough or whatever it is, that they're going to be rejected and they're going to lose their jobs or lose their partners or lose something. And it is an absolute anxiety and stress that's going on, because the bigger the gap between the mask and who we think we are, the bigger the stress.
And it's exhausting.
Oh,
it's just exhausting to keep on being somebody you're not.
Yeah, totally. So once the story comes out and you start to work with the story, I encourage people to start to dream. Because don't you find this, Jessica, that people get to a phase in their lives where they're cynical, so cynical that they go, what's the point of dreaming? That's what kids do. Get real. You know, I've got a family to feed. I've got a mortgage to pay. What are you talking about dreams?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very true. I mean, I do something with taking people to find their passions, and they go, well, what good's that? But I've seen again and again that when somebody actually follows their passions, some amazing changes happen in their lives.
Yeah, because the thing is, you can't achieve anything. You can't make changes. You can't make shifts if you don't have a dream, if you don't go within you and start to question and write and really explore your inner self, your core, and say, what do I love doing? And then start making goals. Because without having that goal ahead of you, without having the dream, because you see, this is what happens, is that if you... Let's do this now. If you look around in the room that you're sitting, just look around. There's light fittings, there's windows, there's furniture, there's flooring. Would it be fair to say that once upon a time, none of these things existed? Somebody had to think them and then go to the outside and then make them happen. So in the same way it is with us, is if we don't dream, because dreaming is a bit like a dress rehearsal. We can dream and suddenly we go, oh, I really like that. And therefore, we start to create that goal so that we are able to shoot it in and make this goal happen. So the second step to any transformation after you know who you are is to start dreaming about what you want to do so that you can start to achieve, start to move towards it. Now we've got the goal. I've seen goals fail because one big thing, they haven't planned them. And you know that famous saying that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it sounds a little bit, I mean, people come to me and they go, oh, you know, I prefer working organically. And I go, yeah, I know. And when you work organically, you'll work a lot and you'll work many hours and you'll be very stressed. but you won't have achieved a lot of things, because when you work organically and you're not planning, you don't know what you're aiming for, you don't know what you're achieving, and you have got nothing to measure with. So it's a key thing to be able to actually plan first. And once you've planned, you need to connect. Now, what I mean by connect, if that goal stays just about you, if you don't want to achieve it, then you're only going to be letting yourself down. So let's, for instance, say both Jessica and myself, we're authors. And I don't know about you, Jessica, but when I started thinking about writing the book, and I had all that self-doubt, and can I do this? And, have I got enough words? I've always wanted to be an author, but, can I write a whole book? And so when it was still in just the planning stage, I had all this self-talk, and I knew that if I decided this was too difficult, all I was going to do is let myself down, and I would never achieve my dream, my goal to be an author. But when I connected on a higher level, so this goal became bigger than me, and I connected on a much higher level, this wasn't about me anymore. This was about who this book would serve. And suddenly, if I didn't write this book, all the people that could benefit from it wouldn't, because of my own personal egoistical fear. And I mean this with all respect. And therefore, for me, the option to not write it now wasn't there. I had to write this because it wasn't for me any longer. I was writing this for my audience. I was writing this for every single person out there who has gone through life in a way and felt unhappy and didn't know how to resolve it. So for me, that connection, the planning and the connection were absolutely crucial. And coupled to that is passion. Without passion, it's difficult to get out of bed and write a book, because it can be quite hard at times. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Passion, I think, is the key to everything. I've seen it again and again, because it's just totally the fuel that moves us forward. And passions can also be your signposts. If you know, like, your top 5 passions in life, whenever you're faced with a choice or an opportunity or a decision, then you can look at your passions and go, does it take me towards where I want to go?
Yeah.
So it helps you stay focused on what you really want to do. And I also want to come back to what you said about connecting, because you can connect to a bigger purpose that does serve other people. But there's also, for some people, it's about who in your life, who personally, maybe it's your family or your children or your partner. That connection is about that it doesn't matter who it is that it connects you with, but it gives you a greater purpose for following through on your plan. And your passion will be the fuel for doing it. So I always say to people, if you're not passionate, think twice.
Yeah, go and find it. And I say this in business. I said, if you lack passion for what you do, you're not going to get excellent at what you're doing. Because people that are passionate, you don't have to stimulate them. You don't have to motivate them to read more about it, to go and listen to audios, to go to seminars, to conferences, to do research, to write about it, to write some more about it, to talk about it. But people that are passionate do that anyway. And because they do that, because they're constantly involved with that, as a result of that, they become experts. So if you want to become really, really good at what you want to do, passion is like right there. You've got to do this. And the last thing in this sort of step is also balance. So it's good to be passionate, but I've seen people lose themselves inside their office and inside their passion, to the detriment of their family, to the detriment of their business, to the detriment of their friends. So as much as that passion can drive you, and if you see people working late and you see them working on the weekend, it's passion that drives them. It's that determination, it's that love for what they've got. But there needs to be a balance. And the balance doesn't mean never work on the weekend or never work late, but always make sure that you are balancing the other elements in your life so that you can have that sort of balance. And sometimes it means speaking to your family and saying, hey, I'm writing a book, so the next 3 months I'll make the time, but it won't be as much. But whatever it is, you need to just address it and make sure you've got that balance so that you can go ahead and achieve what you want. So now the next thing is, right, so we've got the plan and we've got the passion going and we've got the connection. You've got to watch what you're putting into life. So here's what a lot of people do on a Monday morning. They've had a great weekend. It's been fantastic weather at last. And now it's Monday morning. It's like, oh, it's Monday morning. I don't feel like working. Oh, it's such a schlep. And, people in the office and this and that and on and on and on they go. And that is as they, as they're getting dressed, as they're having their coffee, as they're getting in the car, as they're traveling, it's just everything is like, And then they wonder why they get stress and uncertainty and all this kind of drag and schlep out of their lives. Because it works a little bit like a food processor. If I keep putting apples, I will never get orange juice out of a food processor. And when we look at that, we think, well, yeah, that makes sense. It's not like, you keep putting apples thinking, maybe this time I'll get orange juice. You'll never get orange juice out of apples. However, when life is the same thing, what we put into our lives is what we're going to get out. So if we put anxiety and stress and worry, we're going to get anxiety and stress and worry out. And this is a very hard step that I find, because for a lot of people, they want to have the proof first to act the behavior. So there's a saying that Wayne Dyer always says, people want to see in order to believe, but actually you need to believe in order to see. And if I take you back to what I said earlier on, everything that you have in the outside world, in other words, all your behaviors and all of this, is as a direct result of what you were thinking on the inside, what you're thinking, your values, your beliefs were. All of those things create what you have on the outside. So part of having your transformation and part of achieving new goals and dreams is you've got to look and say, well, what am I putting into life in order to achieve what I want?
I think it's really good to just sometimes have if you've had a day that's not been a really good day, just take a step at the end of the day and think, okay, what was I thinking this morning when I got up? Because we need to become aware of our thoughts, and it's really good to write those down and to kind of have a day when like just find out what it was. What was the seed that I sowed right at the beginning of the day that then went right the way through the day? Yeah. And also, when you have a brilliant day, when everything is in flow and nothing could get better, do the same thing then.
Yeah.
And go, what was I thinking this morning?
Yeah.
That seeded that day. Because when you start to I always say, when you start to become aware of what your mind is doing, then you can start to change it. So hindsight is really handy on those days. So terrible days, what was I thinking? Great days, what was I thinking? And start to see, so you can start to see what will serve you better.
Yeah. Jessica, I worked for South African Airways for almost 10 years. And for most of those years, I'd say for about 8 of those years, I worked first as a cabin controller, senior cabin controller, and then as a purser for the 747s. And I used to see this kind of behavior time and time again. If the cabin crew came on board and they brought with them baggage of what was going on at home and difficulties they were having with maybe relationships or whatever it may be, and then they would start a service, that energy that, oh, life is so bad, life's so difficult, they would carry that into the service, and one passenger after the next would give them challenges. They would be difficult. They would ask for things that are not on the trolley. They would be asking for this. They would be moaning. And the more that happened, the more aggravated they would get, but still smiling. And the more they would get from that. And I would say to them, make a decision to have a good flight, irrespective of what's going on in life. I said, we're going to close the aircraft doors. We're going to take off. I want us to take off and leave behind whatever problems and baggage you've got. And decide before we start to have a good flight. And when they did that consciously, their flight used to just go smooth. It was just amazing. Nobody asked for anything wrong. Everything went smoothly. And when they didn't have something, people went, oh, don't worry. It was that kind of thing. Whereas before it would be like, well, I really want this. Can I have this? Can you get it for me later? Sort of rude, obnoxious passengers. So it definitely, the energy that we put into life is really, really important, because it will determine what we get out. And the most important thing is you've got to understand that what you have on the physical side, what you're showing on the outside, there is a line that you can draw, that underneath it is your mental, spiritual, and emotional that governs that physical world, the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I mean, if we become consciously aware and just start to really observe and look at somebody, at the way they're walking and the way they're talking. We can see how they're thinking at that moment. We can see what kind of values and beliefs they've got. We can see what kind of spiritual grounding they've got. And we can also see how they're emotionally feeling about themselves or about life at that moment, because the physical reveals it all. So the evidence is there, not just for us to look at others, but even for us to look at ourselves. But because we live such an unconscious life, we have stopped looking and thinking. And as a result of us not thinking any longer, we don't notice these things. And this is a key thing to know, is that we go from a thinking stage when we're very young to then doing, to then being. And this is the state of being. And the biggest problem in the state of being, where we identify with the I am, we start to give ourselves titles. I am a depressed person. I am an anxious kind of person. I don't have very high esteem. Those kind of things we start to identify. It is because we've stopped thinking, and we assume that at this point there's nothing we can do, that this is set in stone. So one of the key things is we've got to learn to love ourselves first. Because when we put love into ourselves and we put love into our lives, we start to have that flow happen. It starts to flow again. Things start to work.
And I think also what happens is that we've got a great feedback system inside of us, which is how we feel.
Which we don't use.
Which we don't use. The amount of times, and I've done it, and I've heard my clients say it, and everything's like, oh, I felt something was wrong. And we don't listen to that. And the key is that when you're thinking thoughts that will lead you to a good place, to be in the flow with things, to be actually for life to be working, you will feel good inside.
Yeah.
And when you're thinking the thoughts that are going to trip you up and create those awful passengers on the plane, for example, you're going to feel that inside of you. And so when you get that odd feeling inside of yourself, don't ignore it, don't push it away, but stop for a second and say, what am I thinking? What am I creating in my mind here? Because that is going to help you so much more.
And again, this is something that, and it's a generation thing. Our parents never knew this to teach us this. I teach it to my kids, but I know that my parents didn't know this to teach me, is that we're not taught to actually listen to that. We're not taught to pay attention to those things. And when we have bad feelings, it was like, just get over it. So what we have been taught to do is to deny and suppress. And that doesn't help us, because like Jessica says, like you've said, Jessica, is that it's feedback information, and it's valuable because your unconscious mind knows so much information, and therefore really, really important to listen to what your unconscious is telling you.
But that's a huge part of learning to love yourself.
Yep.
To love what's going on inside of you.
Yeah, and just know that this is as good as it gets. So you better make the best of it, because you can't go and change it. You can change your thinking, but your body and everything, this is what it is. So why spend a whole life tormenting and not loving yourself? Rather love yourself, take a step back, think about that thinking, and then start doing some changes. So naturally, and think the next step to a transformation is you've got to understand your emotions and get emotionally smart. Get to recognize what those are. Because emotions are messengers from the unconscious mind giving us information. So for instance, when we're angry, your unconscious is basically saying, somebody's let you down. You've got expectations and somebody has let you down. So with anger, for instance, you have, we say that disappointment requires adequate planning. Nobody gets disappointed unless they've been sitting there for hours thinking about how something is going to turn out. And when that something doesn't turn out that way, we get angry. And it's almost like, well, hello, did somebody get the memo? Did you send out the memo about how people should have behaved, or what they should have done, or what So, for instance, you might be driving on the road and here comes this young person and they do something totally stupid and you nearly crash. Most people naturally will just, typical bloody kids, or, type of thing. Because we have an expectation that if you're going to come on the road, you're going to drive responsibly like you would. Because your value system says that if I'm going to drive on the road, I'm going to drive safely. I'm going to drive responsibly because there's other people around me. So when somebody doesn't do that, it makes you angry because you're going like, that's what I expect. It's my expectation. However, does everybody on the road have that same, receive that memo? Oh my goodness, Vicky Ross is on the road. She expects me to drive 100%. I better just become consciously aware of my driving and do my best. You see, everybody lives their own little life in their own cocoon. And as a result of that, everybody does what they think is best and what works for them to their value and belief systems. So we need to step back when we get angry and ask ourselves, what is it that I was expecting that I didn't get? And as a result of that, I'm feeling angry now. And another emotion that is a big emotion that, Jessica, I'm sure you also see a huge amount, is anxiety. And anxiety is an emotion of the future, where people fear and worry and stress about things that may happen in the future. And the interesting thing is that the brain cannot tell the difference between reality and fantasy. So as a result, when the fantasy, in other words, the thought is about something that will happen in the future, your brain cannot tell the difference and say, well, that's just a thought. That's not really happening. And because time doesn't exist, if you really think about it, the only thing that exists is this moment. When the brain is having that thought, it thinks it's having this experience right now, and therefore it will produce the stress hormones in that moment. And this is why we can think about something and feel the dread, feel the sadness, feel the worry, feel the anxiety in our bodies.
I remember a hilarious thing now when I look back on it. I remember crying once. Absolutely, you know, that kind of hysterical crying when you're going, that kind of crying.
We call ugly crying.
Yeah, and I was crying, and then suddenly this thought came to me like, this hasn't even happened. This probably won't even happen. And I remember I stopped crying immediately. And the funny thing is I can remember this situation, but can I remember what I was crying about? It was so unlikely. I can't even remember what it was. And that's the power of the mind.
I know.
It does that if we let it.
And the sad thing is that people actually underestimate how resilient and how strong they really are. So if we just look at this from a very logical, very scientific, anthropological point of view, we are built to survive, because it's like a very ancient instinct in us. It's in our reptilian brain that we've got the instinct to survive. And the reason we have such a strong instinct to survive is to preserve the species. So we all go through a lot of adversity in our life. You know, I have never met anybody who, by their version of what their life is, hasn't gone through some kind of adversity. And we all survive. I mean, some of us choose not to, but most of us survive. And therefore, we underestimate how strong and how powerful we are. And yes, I know that sometimes, you can look back and think, oh, I could have done that better. But if we can accept that we all do the best that we can with the information and the knowledge and the resources that we have in that moment, we'll do whatever we can to survive. Now, another emotion is people come to me very often because they want confidence. So this is a very common one as well. And they think that confidence is something magical that they don't know how to do yet. And therefore, if I just show them how to be confident, then they can just do that. But what they need to understand is that actually, if they're not confident in that moment for whatever reason, what they're actually experiencing is fear, because that is the opposite. So if you don't feel you're confident enough to go and give a presentation, what you're actually feeling at that moment is fear. So the question is what am I feeling scared about? What is my fear about? And most times fear is just a warning to say, hey, before you go out there, are you ready? Do you know your stuff? Are you rehearsed? Have you studied? Have you gone through all your work? So fear is a way of saying to you, hey, are you prepared? And all you need to go say, yeah, I'm prepared. This I know, this I don't know, too late for that. And then the fear can subside, because it just is the unconscious making a checklist. And there are times that fear is also about a warning that something is not right. And again, we have to listen to that gut feel to say, well, what is not right? Because, why am I getting this kind of signal? Is there something wrong? Is there a window open? Is somebody maybe in my house? What is actually going on here? So it is about, again, it's a warning sign. It's like, oh, are you ready? Are you prepared? Are you okay? That's all it is. And when we address that, the fear can go. And then we can be courageous. And through that, and the repetition of that, we can be confident. Because confidence just comes from a repetition of doing something well or doing something in a certain way that makes us feel good. And if something makes us feel good and we keep doing it, we then can say, I am confident to do that. That's all it is.
People often come to me and say, I'll do it when I'm confident.
Yeah,
No,
ain't gonna happen.
You'll do it, then you'll be confident.
Confident, because it's through doing it that the confidence comes. So it's the fear that we have to overcome. Now, naturally, you can't be doing all of these things and not taking care of your body. And I know it seems like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised. I want you to imagine like two ladders, and you've got a little man on the top of the one ladder and a little man on the bottom of the other ladder. Now, the one on the bottom, he's starting his climb for his career. He's climbing up the career ladder. The other one is at the peak of his health. So as the one's going up, I want you to imagine that the other one's coming down. And the ladder, the way they move up and down the ladder, has got to do with how many years are passing you by. And this is what I see. I see people really, really fighting, pushing, doing whatever they can to climb up that ladder year in, year out. And then they get to their mid-40s, early 50s, only to be unhealthy, to be sick, to have blood pressure, diabetes, God knows, all sorts of different things, being overweight. And what happens if we don't look after our bodies, if we don't eat properly, if we don't hydrate, if we don't exercise, we start to feel tired, exhausted, and we don't have the resilience, even on an emotional level, to deal with the stresses that life gives us. So therefore, it is really, really important. We've got to make sure that we eat properly, that our bodies are healthy, that we put live food, vegetables and fruit into our bodies. So it's not about going on to crazy diets, because crazy diets, I can tell you now, don't work. And most people that get past a certain age will agree, because they've tried and tested virtually everything. But it's about stepping back and asking yourself, what can I do differently so that I can be healthy, so I can have a clear mind, I can think straight, I can get up in the morning and not feel like I'm dragging my body through, and I need that fix of caffeine so I can wake up, because that's like a drug. Might as well take a wake-up tablet. So what can I do? And it's not about being fanatical. It's not about joining the gym and working out 2 hours for 7 days a week, but it's about finding a way that your life can flow through a healthy attitude, and making sure that you do all the checkups. I don't know how many people that I speak to fear illness, and they're too scared to go to the doctor and find out what's going on. And by the time they do, a lot of them, it's too late. So you've got this body, and you can push as hard as you want to become successful. If you don't have your health, you can do nothing with the success. You can be as rich, you can have the most amazing house, the most beautiful car, you can have all the money in the world to travel, and if you're sick, you can't enjoy any of that. So the sacrifice that people pay over the amount of years to getting to where they want versus their health isn't worth it. Health is important. Meditating, having time to reflect, having time to just soften, just relax, and just let go of the stresses. It's absolutely key, because the mental stuff will affect the physical. So you need to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to support your body, so that your body can support you. What do you think about that?
And also to add to that, I think, there's different ways to do it for different people.
Yeah,
And
there's no,
like you said, it's not the fad thing. It's not like, if you don't want to go and join a gym, don't go and join a gym, but find something that takes you outside maybe, and help you can exercise, a sport. Or, I mean, for example, I love hiking. I'll go and hike whenever possible. It's like finding something that you will carry on doing. Because what happens is, if you try and push yourself into something that you don't like, whether it's a way of eating or a type of exercise, eventually the rebel in you will rebel and go, won't, shan't. And so you want to find something that you actually enjoy, that also keeps you healthy. And in that way, there's a longevity in that, and you keep on doing it.
Because when you enjoy it, it will make you feel good, and therefore you'll want to do it. And that will create the right chemicals internally to keep you healthy. So it's not about, got to do it. It's about doing something, whatever it is. I mean, if you love going, yeah. I mean, some people are absolutely fanatic and they love it. That's brilliant. It's about having enjoyment in what you do, enjoyment in your food, enjoyment in your exercise, but in a healthy way so that you're able to keep it going. And of course, the other thing about keep getting that transformation and going through that transition is how are you communicating with yourself mainly? It's really key. What are you saying to yourself? How are you communicating with others, your family, your friends, business? So when people look at you, can they tell? Can they see what you feel? And this doesn't mean that you never get upset, but are you more of this than of this? And we know some people, if I talk to people and I say, have you got people that always complain? Do you know, is there somebody in your life that will always complain and they go, oh God, yeah, we've all got one of those. Do you know people at your workplace that if something is going too well, too right, too smooth, they have to do something to generate some stress again because they can't, they can't go with just a relaxed. And then you meet other people and they're always happy. I mean, they have bad days, but they get on top of it. They move on. They're able to bounce back. They've got, good resilience. So what is your communication like with yourself? And also, when you go to work, what are you like there? What are you known for? How do you come across? Do people think that you're fair or that you're bossy or that you are like you always sort of, oh, be careful what you're going to say. I mean, the interesting thing, and I didn't know this, when people would see my name on the flight thing, people would go, oh God, it's Vicky Macropolis. And then people would say, what's she like? What's she like? And they go, she's really, really strict. So you better just stay in line and do all the things you need to do. But if you do that, you're going to have an absolute smashing flight with her. So a lot of people didn't quite know what that meant. And I was just really, really strict about procedures and especially safety procedures because, we were in an aeroplane. But if they'd done all the checks right and if they'd done all the preps right, we were there and we were having a bliss time. We were just having a good time because I believe that if the cabin crew were happy, the passengers would be happy. So my communication in that environment dictated that, said that this is how I work. And, you can see when people like themselves because that communication comes across. It's there, when they like themselves. And equally so, it's very obvious when somebody doesn't like themselves. It's also important to step back and ask yourself, I'm going through a transition. I'm going through change. How am I communicating with my family? And if you don't have kids, but you still got family, we've all got family, how do you communicate? Because, we communicate differently in our energies and the way that we are with our family, to our friends, to our colleagues at work, to strangers, and I remember Richard Bandler saying that you really have to know somebody very, very well to be able to shout at them and scream at them. And I looked at him and I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he says, well, if you're all sitting around the table having dinner and one of your family members, like say, for instance, spills an orange juice, the parent will probably go, look what you're doing, stupid, there's mess everywhere, blah, 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 blah. But if the same thing happened and it happened to a friend that was sitting at that dinner and they're going, oh, I'm so sorry, you think, oh, don't worry, it's fine, it's okay, it's just a little bit of orange juice on the table. So this is what he's going on about, is that, you wouldn't naturally just fly off the handle at somebody that you don't know that well. But if you know somebody really well, then you feel very comfortable to just, shout at them, which doesn't make it right, by the way. Treating everybody with love and respect as much as possible. Although sometimes I can hear some of you saying, is that realistic? But that's the way that you go forward in order to have the best communication in relationships. And of course,
also, there's just one thing around communication is that also it's about listening, and it's not about just listening to other people, although that's a huge part of it.
Is that communication
hearing what they're saying to you rather than making it mean something, going back to what we were talking about earlier on, but also about listening to yourself.
Yeah, to that voice.
What are you saying to yourself? What's the voice inside of you? Because that really does have an effect on your inner communication and how you communicate to the world.
Yeah. And ask yourself, what is your face telling the world? Because, your face will tell lots and lots of different stories. It can go from one kind of expression to another. And here's, I wonder what's going on there. Oh my goodness, this is exciting. So, our face expression, and here's the thing, that most people are completely unaware in the moment of what their face is doing and what their face is saying. The good part is that most people are also unaware and therefore not watching the signals. But when they start to learn what the signals are, it just starts to paint a completely different picture. Now, last but not least in this transformation is the part that really becomes exciting, which is the reinventing yourself. And something that you said earlier on, Jessica, is about, when you wake up in the morning, you ask yourself, who do I need to be today? What am I doing? So sometimes I'm a mom, and sometimes I'm a businesswoman, and sometimes I'm a therapist, sometimes I'm an author, and sometimes I'm an administrator. So I can ask myself, if I'm going to be an author today, how does an author think? How does an author feel? How does an author get out of bed? Because I'm going to get up as an author. I set my day up. I decide how I want to feel about what's coming. I don't kind of wait for chance to do it for me. I make the time. So what I do is, for instance, if I've got to get up at 6:00, I set my alarm for 10 to 6. So I've got that 10 minutes where I've given myself permission to snooze. And in those 10 minutes, I think about who I need to be. So I've looked at my whole picture. Then I say to myself, who do I need to be? How do I reinvent myself? Because reinventing myself is about me starting to think differently about my circumstances. So one of the people I worked with, she was doing her dissertation for her master's degree. And she was like, oh, I'm so nervous and I can't write. So her thinking was about, I can't do this. I can't do the writing. I'm not an author. So she had to reinvent herself in that circumstance. And I said, I want you to imagine and pretend that you are an author and that you can articulate on paper beautifully and that you have all the resources and all the information that you need to be able to do that easily and effortlessly, can't you? And she went, yeah. If I can just pretend. So I said, well, just pretend. And pretending is the same thing as doing. You just have to think differently to what you've always been thinking so that you can create a different outcome. And she did this, and she wrote a dissertation, and she passed with flying things. And she just burst into the training room in tears. And she said, thank you so much. I've passed, and it's all thanks to you. And I said, no, you did all the work. I just told you how to do it, just to think differently. So it's time to think differently now that you've really got to know yourself, got to look at all the different aspects of your life and start to rewrite that story. So remember at the beginning, the first step was, who are you? What's your story? When you go through the whole process, it's starting to rewrite your story and decide to go through the door of a different life. And it doesn't mean that you have to change all parts of your life, but you need to change the parts that don't serve you, the parts that don't deliver what it is that you want. So here's what I do. I specialize in transformational retreats, which are held in Greece. The best place in the world as far as I'm concerned. It's just got all the elements, the energy, the weather, and just also it's a bit of a metaphorical thing that when you move away from the life that you've got to a different place, you can start to make different changes because you can think about yourself in a different way. So the transformation and from the transition can start to happen. So this is what I do, and I do this 4 times a year. It's by application only. Each group that I take will only be no more than 10. So we're able to have a very, very close-knit time there. So if any of you are interested in that, you can contact me later. But I have a different proposition for you tonight because we've got summertime here in England at last. So the best thing about summer is that because there's more light, there's more, the weather is nice and warm. We feel so much better when it's summertime, as you all probably do. We like to walk more. We tend to eat better. We tend to feel more happier because a lot of people can feel that sad syndrome in the winter. So summertime is a wonderful, wonderful time to do transformations. So what I would like is for you to join me for a transformational summer from the comfort of your home. By all means, if you want to join me in Greece, come. but let's do this here in the UK. So I will spend 3 months with you, 3 full months, teaching you and helping you to make the changes that you want to make, because I know what support people need to get successful transformations, and I can help you make those changes and give you that support. So we will spend 3 months together going through these processes. I will be there to catch you, to be able to teach you how to think differently and facilitate this process. So let's see how this process can actually work. And here's what you can get for the next 3 months if you join me on this transformational summer. So you get 3 online trainings. So we start, the first one is on the 15th, which is this Monday. And on this one, I set you up. I help you get started. I help you prepare. And I will answer all your questions that you have, because it will be an interactive kind of webinar. So I answer all the questions that you have about what needs to happen, how do you get put yourself into that place, how do you get started, the questions, any problems that you may have. That's what happens on the first one. Then you start the online training, and on, I think it is the 7th of August, the dates will come with a pack. We have the second one. Now, in the second one, by this stage, we've done the what's your story, what are your dreams and goals. There's like a huge amount of stuff that you're going to be learning to do. So by this stage, any questions, any thing that's come up, any resistance, any limitations, you start to send them to me. As you're working through the programs, you send me all these things, and I create a tailor-made program that will be interactive, and that will be the second one. And then you'll do exactly the same thing as you move through the next 4 webinars, modules, and any question that comes up, you will send it to me, and I will then create the next one. So that's the first step of this. Now, you get 8 1-hour-long movies. So all those steps that I told you, each one of those will be an hour-long movie teaching you how to do this transformation and supporting you through that. I've also taken the audios out of the movie. So if you want to listen to that information again, you will be free to do so, whether you're driving or while you're taking a walk or vacuum cleaning your house, whatever it is. You can listen to those audios and as often as you like, so you can reinforce the lessons. Now, part of this is 3 hypnotic audios. Now, all my hypnotic audios are done with binaural sounds, which is left and right sounds are different, layered voices, so there's affirmations, and it just helps create fantastic trance. Now, the hypnotic audios will help you focus, will help you be motivated, and will also help you clear out any of those limitations, because they're very, very specific audios that I've made. You get a downloadable journal where you're able to, after every movie, go and reflect on all of your thoughts. So let's look a little bit deeper as to exactly how this all works. So you'll be able to get this from access to on your iPad or any tablet, your phones. As long as you can get Wi-Fi, you can get it. So you watch the online video. It's about an hour long. And then you have some questions to reflect on the lesson. So every single lesson is very, you have to reflect on yourself. Then you can go to the journal, download any other tables and any other homework that you've got, and then you will spend the rest of that week journaling around that topic. Now, each video has that separate audio, so if you want to listen to it again, then you can. Now, here's the CDs that come with it. The first one that I'm giving you is called the Enhanced Relaxation, so that you're able to go through and, be stress-free, relax, learn to sort of meditate, learn to sort of take life easy and just chill out a little bit. So this particular CD really helps you do that with just absolute smooth. Of course, by the middle of the program, you're starting to create goals. And this is what this one will do. It will help you create that abundance. It will help you put out that energy for what you want to create. And of course, last but not least, you get to reinvent yourself. So you can listen to that as often as you like, so that you're able to set up your day. So you don't leave your day for random. You actually can set up what it is that you want. So let me just go again through what are the 8 videos. So the first one is about your story. So a whole hour around your story so that you can really explore it in depth and really work with it. The second one is about goal setting. And in the journal, there's space for 10 goals, but you're not expected through the program to do 10 goals. You just do about, say, 1 or 2. And that means that you can come back and revisit this whole program whenever you want and do some more, because there's space for that. The next one is, of course, taking the dream and planning it, putting in the time, putting in the connection, and really making sure that you've got it all sorted out and step for step. You will be able to explore what you're putting into life. It will ask you about what kind of emotions you're choosing in certain circumstances. So this part can be a little bit challenging, but I tell you what, when people finish it, they feel so different, because this will start to change your thinking. You start to have a conscious awareness up to this point, and at this point here, it'll start to change your thinking by doing the exercises that it gives you. The fifth one, of course, is getting emotionally smart. And this will give you all the information around the emotions that are, most that come up to the surface. It deals with 5 negative and 2 positives. And that will give you knowledge so that when you go out there and you experience something, you can step back and go, hold on, I don't need to be slave to this emotion any longer. I know what this is about. Naturally, we'll look at the healthy attitude for everybody. So you start to look and see, what am I doing? You can set some goals for yourself and start to align. You'll also understand what causes disease, because I talk about what causes all these things and what makes everything happen. So you really start to understand about stresses, about not eating properly, about the lack of exercise. And you can just think, well, what am I going to do? What do I want? Naturally, we'll talk about communication. How do you relate, and how can you relate to the next level? How you can increase your level of communication, and how you're able to enhance it. And what are you saying about yourself? So we look into communication. And last but not least, of course, reinventing yourself. And in this part of it, we also look very deeply into career and money, your values, your beliefs, your spirituality. It's all about that. So you really get a very, very rounded, in-depth look at your life through this transformation, and you come out a different person. So I've got a special bonus on this particular webinar, and this is the webinar for tonight and tonight only, that on the 5th of October, whoever comes on this transformational summer program, the 3-month, will get to come on the 5th of October for a full day training with your +1. So one of the things that I really think is important is that when you do something like this, that you invite somebody in your life to be like your listening partner. So somebody that you meet maybe once a week and go for coffee with and say, I learned this week, and what do you think? And, question them. Perhaps it's your partner, it's like your husband or wife, or your partner, and they will actually do the program with you. And that is fine with me, because, they can watch a movie while you're watching the movie. So whoever you decide to have accountable, and it even could be a buddy from the Facebook group that you're going to have, but whoever you decide is your accountability buddy, I'd like you to invite them to come and join this day with you, so that you can have somebody there with. And that will be free for you, because this program normally goes for £249 for the, this is the 1-day training. So the 1-day training is at $249. But if you decide to join me for this transformational summer, you can get to come for free with your +1, so that you're able to just join me there and get a complete sort of full. So the program will take you around about 8 weeks. And then I'll give you about 4 weeks to sort of let things settle. And maybe if you've got a few things you want to finish. And then a month later, which is the 5th of October, we come and spend this day. So this is the way we finish off the 3 months. So I have something extra for you here as well. The first 5 clients on this particular evening to pay in full for the transformational summer. So because I'll give you an option of paying 3 months or pay in full, get a 1-to-1 coaching session with me at a time of their choosing. So whenever you want it, you may want it at the start, you may want it in the middle, in the end, wherever you want it. You phone my PA, you set up a time that suits both you and me, and we will have a full-on session about something that is going on with you. So that is what is for the first 5 clients to come on board on this program. And I've got another one. The first 10 people to pay in full, I will post a physical copy of the journal so you don't have to download it. Now, this is 134 pages. This is not just a little leaflet. It's a massive journal. It is beautiful. It is beautifully composed, and you'll be able to put all your thoughts and ideas onto paper. And like I said, there's space for 10 goals there, and you can go back and revisit. It is a really, really detailed, gorgeous, gorgeous journal. So the first 10 people to come on will be able to get that as well. So let's recap and see what is it that this 3-month Transformational Summer program provides. It's the 3 online training webinars. It's 8 one-hour-long movies, 8 one-hour-long audios, 3 hypnotic audio CDs to support you and help you and motivate you, a downloadable journal for you to do all your work, one-to-one coaching for the first 5 to pay in full, 10 physical journals for the first 10 to pay in full, and a full day workshop with me on the 5th of October with your +1. So that is the deal. So here's the best part of it all, is the price. You get all of this for only £450. So it's 3 months with all of this information and all the resources and the support for just £450. Or if you want, you can spread the payments over 3 months and do £150, which is nothing if you think of what you're getting and what you'll get at the end of it. The transformation that you get at the end is the most valuable part of this whole journey, is what you get for yourself, the investment that you're going to make for yourself. Now, this program starts this Monday, which is the 15th of July, with our first online training. Then the first module is released the next day, which is the Tuesday, the 16th. And then every 7 days, you'll have another module. Now, you'll be able to see all the modules, but if you want to just keep up at a pace that is good, do it every 7 days, do one module. And that will be a pace that will be achievable by anybody at just investing 1 to 2 hours a week for yourself. Obviously, you can do more, but that's all you need to do. So the question then comes in is, where do I sign up? How do I get onto this program? And that's quite easy. I've got a special sales page on my website. You can't access this page from just going to my website. So you need to actually do this by typing it in. And it is www.vickyross.com Transformational Summer. And remember that the trance is spelled as TRANCE, as in a trance that you're in. On that page, you'll get all the information that you need to go ahead and sign up. But if you'd like to speak to a person rather than just go and do it, like somebody from my team, please call Teresa. She's absolutely awesome. She's my PA, and this is her number. And she'll be waiting for your calls tomorrow to be able to answer them and help you get on board. So her number is 07904 287 065. So I look forward to working with you. And now let's go on to some questions and answers. So here it is again, what you need to do to be able to get on board. Just get onto my website to vickyross.com, Transformational Summer. At the bottom of that page, there's a video there, so you're welcome to watch. It's a 7-minute video that tells you a little bit more about the program. There's also written information, so you can read something up if you want to get a little bit more precise about what it is. And if you look right at the bottom of that page, on the left-hand side, there's the 450 one payment. On the right is the 3 payment of 150. So that's what you have to do in order to get on board. So at this stage, let's do some questions and answers. If you see at the bottom of the thing, you've got space to type up some questions, and this would be a time to do that now. Jessica, while we're waiting for people to ask any questions, anything that you'd like to add?
I think we've covered a huge amount in the whole webinar, to be honest. We've touched on so many points. It's been brilliant.
Yeah.
And I would just say if anybody kind of taking notes and kind of to really kind of go back over that, but it's a fantastic program that you're offering for the summer. And like you say, summer is a perfect time. And kind of come on board and do it for sure.
There's 2 questions that people have asked me in the past, which I'm going to just cover now for those of you that are listening. And one of them is, where will the actual one day on the 5th of October take place? And what I do is, once we've got everybody on board, I will have a look and see where everybody's location is, and I'll try and find the most central place to be. So at this stage, I'm not quite sure where everybody's coming from. We're starting to get a bit of an idea, but obviously tonight was the last night. So that will be announced to the group. And of course, I will talk to the group through Facebook, because we're setting up a Facebook page for this and being able to just work with everybody. And the other question is, what happens if I haven't finished all the modules in those 8 weeks? Well, strictly speaking, you've got about 12 weeks to do it. And even if you haven't finished everything, you can still come to the 5th of October. It doesn't matter. There's no whip. You can still take place on the online trainings and come to the thing if you haven't finished everything. But to get the most benefit, I mean, to come on board and to actually do it and get the most benefit out of this program, it is to just give yourself, commit to yourself, to that investment in yourself, to do this transformation, and then to say, do 2 hours a week, and it might be an hour to watch and then an hour to do some of the journaling, or, you might spread it out. It doesn't matter how you do it, and all of that. So let me see this question. How much time? So how much time do I need to do each week? The movies are about an hour, so definitely an hour. And then you need, I'd say, about half an hour to answer the questions, and about maybe another half an hour to do the journal. But, people are individuals. So some people will take a little bit longer. Some people will go through it quickly. Some people have got bigger stories, that story that we're starting about why I'm like this, and this is my story. So some people's stories are a little bit bigger, so they'll take a little bit longer. But this is where any questions or anything that come up, you either will speak to Teresa and voice those questions to her. She'll bring them to me, email them to me, and that's when I'll be able to work with that kind of question, especially for the online training. And of course, it will be confidential. I'm not going to say, oh, and Jessica said this to me this week, and let me talk about that. Everything will be very confidential. So can I work on anything in my life? Absolutely. Sometimes people are working with more than one thing. One of my clients from a past program, part of it was about her self-image and how she felt. Part of it was about moving jobs, and the other part was about getting a partner. So a lot of it stemmed back to how she felt about herself, and how she felt about herself made, impacted on her job, and it impacted on her getting a partner. So although it seemed like separate things, I can guarantee you that when you start to look at them and you start to bring the problems up, that there's a pivotal point of where they all meet. And so those kind of things get addressed. So yes, you can work on anything in your life. And it also could be, my life is pretty okay, but I want more. I believe in developing myself, and therefore I want to do something. So does anybody else have any other questions that I can answer, or anything else that's coming to mind, that any comments that you want to pass, anything else?
Sounds like we're done.
No, I think that's fine. This recording is available, and also for some of you that I don't know if you know anybody that actually missed it, this is available. So we will email it to you tomorrow, when we've actually downloaded the recording and then just cleaned it up. So if you want to listen to this again and listen to the things that we said, then you will be able to do so. It will be available in your emails. So thank you very, very much, Jessica. It's been brilliant co-hosting with you. I really, really enjoyed it. I knew I would, because I just absolutely love your energy and love talking to you anyway. And I just really had a lot of fun tonight.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed it very much so. And I look forward to the next one.
Absolutely. And thanks to the audience. Thank you so much for staying with us and listening. I hope you've taken a lot away, and a lot that will be beneficial to you. And I look forward to seeing you on the program. Just go to the Vicky Ross /Transformational Summer. Come on board, come and have fun, come and enjoy the summer, come and enjoy and discover yourself. And let's just have fun together. So I look forward to seeing you all. And thank you very much, and good night.
Good night.